Welcome to Day Zero. Welcome to Day Zero with FOUNDIT. Today I'm joined by Frank Greeff. Franco, welcome to Day Zero.
Thank you, sir.
Mate, I know that you do a lot of podcasting where you share your journey, your wisdom, and the advice that you've got over the past 15 years of being in business. I guess let's start there. Firstly, is what was Realbase? What was Real Hub? Where did you start? Where did you end up?
Jesus.
Let's just kick off with that.
I'll do a little snapshot, just conscious if people have heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with what is Realbase. So Realbase was essentially a marketplace connecting real estate agents to real estate suppliers for every time they did a property transaction. At time of exit, we're doing roughly 230,000 properties, which makes up about 47% market share of Australia and New Zealand. And where do we start? So we started 13 years ago now. Now my times are like fading. Hey, they're like,
Yeah.
things are getting old now. 13-ish years ago, when I was 20, as a real estate signboard company.
Yeah.
And so it was very random, very niche, but my brother was a real estate photographer, Jacques, my other brother, real estate floor planner. And so we just started as like literally installing real estate signboards.
Mm-hmm. And then fast forward that business, the three of you take it from hustling, you two of you living down in Melbourne, one up in Sydney, and you guys end up building an absolute behemoth by merging with the business.
Yeah.
And kind of overnight by merging with your largest competitor, which you were doing a great job of niggling them, to want to walk into your office at the time and say, would you like to entertain merging?
Yeah.
What did your leadership style change from when you went from a team of like 15 to 20 people to 400 as you became CEO of the whole group?
Yeah, so we used to have a story which was just like, it was absolutely the truth. We just used to say, we're making the shit up as we go. And that was a common thread from start all the way to exit. And so I think cutely, I was like, I know what like being a CEO means. Like, I'm doing that right now. And then, from 40 to 400 overnight, very quickly changed to realizing you as an individual no longer have like the ability to like move the needle much as a contributor. And so what I had to figure out in my style was like going from, I used to love being hands on the tools. And at that time, my tools were selling things. So, getting customers and solving customer problems. And so I used to wear it like a badge of honor pre-merger that I was the highest ticket solver of the business. Each month we'd put out the stats and there was Frank, he solved 1,000 tickets this month. And I was like, look at me, I'm such a legend. And then you get to a team of 400 and a team of 160 support staff, like solving 1,000 tickets means literally nothing.
Yeah.
And then so it was like figuring out how do you go from, changing a contribution of one to like making an impact to many. And so my focus was really like learning how do the great coaches of the world, coach to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, he doesn't know how to play basketball, but he can get the best out of the best.
Yeah.
And so how do you figure out how to actually make an impact as a leader, which is by helping the people in the business, deliver better returns than they ever thought they could.
Yeah. And so what were one of the first hires that when you transition and have enough self-awareness to know the skill sets of, what John Fung used to always say to us, what got you here won't get you there. What's that first hire look like and why was that person critical for the business and the step change?
So like the context of our business is we were like two mortal enemies, the pre-merger state. And so now you had to figure out how to get these very, very competitive beasts to now become one and the same. So the first hire was actually HR. And it was to figure out, it's rather than us and them, how does it become like we? Yep. And so like my litmus test was if you're at a barbecue and you ask one of the team members of Realbase, who do you work for? If they say Campaign Track or Real Hub, that was a failure because that's like who they came from.
Yeah.
If they said Realbase, we had done the job, which is now bringing these cultures together.
Yeah. And now fast forward to Kinso and the new business that you've decided to go again. And I know that you're, and you've worn the Kinso t-shirt. I like it. Is, day one of Kinso, I know you came into it and it kind of built momentum and you're actually solving a problem for yourself.
Yeah. How
are you approaching building a team, firstly? And then we'll come to also what are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest thing is the 13 years of learnings and failures. And I think one of the biggest problems we had in those early days was you put out a hire and you get 2 or 3 candidates and you go, wow, that person is really great. We're hiring them. but your sample size of greatness is 3 people. And so actually that person could have been the slightly less worst one, right? Like, because you haven't created a measuring stick of what good looks like, and therefore it's good between those 3 people. And so these days, like we had a very move fast approach to everything, as you know, loose, fast and loose. But that's the one thing we no longer are fast and loose about. And I'll give you a really tangible example.
Yeah.
We're hiring engineers now. And in the last 8 weeks, we've done 70 job interviews from every different, from a Canva and Atlassian, a Google, Meta, and everything in between. And the reason we did that is because, we only know what good looks like by having enough volume. And for every 9 to 11 interviews, we place 1 candidate.
Yeah.
And then you have like conviction and confidence, like I'm getting the relative best talent that we can actually have access to. And so that's the big difference, is just realizing, people, you hear it over and over again, hire fast, fire slow. But it's like, what does that actually mean? I think it's more just around like, the best talent is really hard to find, and the best talent will make the exponential difference in your business. And so like, what are you doing to make sure you can actually go and find the best talent?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point, because like often the ones who apply for the role, not always, but it's not always the ones you want. The best ones, the best players out there, you've got to go and find them and bring them back into your corner, because they're generally happy where they are. They're contributing, they're having an impact, they've got momentum on their career, whatever trajectory they're on as well. And you've got to actually go and convince them to come back into your corner. It's a very different game to just like putting a job ad up, to your point, and actually just waiting for the talent to come to you.
Exactly 0 of the people we hired applied for the job.
Yeah, right.
Like exactly. So we've put out 0 job ads, and none of them have applied. It's all been like ridiculously expensive recruiters and headhunting from specific places.
So why make the decision to go back into business with your brother again? Over anyone else?
Yeah. I think again, kind of similar-ish on the learnings front is so many businesses break down because of the business partnership, not because of the fundamentals of the business. Like I've heard that time and time again from different VCs or in my network, are like, this is a cracking business. The founders are not working. The business is now insolvent.
Right.
And so the beautiful part of myself and Jacques' relationship is there is no unknowns. We spent 13 years together. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So there's 0 unknowns going into it. But then the even better part is it's like, for the things that matter, we are fully aligned. And for me, the things that matter are like where we want to get to, the trajectory, the pace, the willingness of our risk appetite. For the things that require differing of opinions, we have very different opinions. And so that's the really good balance. So you don't want to go in with like 2 people who are exactly the same, and so no one's challenging each other, but from like a value set, we're the same. And so, it's still very frequently today where I'll say something in the jar, like in front of the team, we're like, no, dude, you're wrong. Like, and just like go at me for the problem. But like the relationship is built purely on like both very ambitious, like trust each other. Like, I trust him 100%.
And respect at the foundations.
Exactly. And so to me, like, I can't see another way. Like I wouldn't like, even if you're like, hey, wave the magic wand, Kinso successful was just you. I'm like, oh, that's kind of lame. Like I'd rather do it. Like it's winning together is so much more fun than winning alone.
Completely agree. There's a good quote to what you're talking about, which is in business, when you go into business with someone, you have to get married first and you date after. And you figure out all the kinks after it. There's so many businesses that fall over, to your point exactly, that just fall over purely because of a relationship breakdown. And it's purely on communication basis most of the time as well. What drove you to want to go again? I know that obviously through us as mates is you had the exit, you wanted to create purpose and meaningful component for you personally, which was the charity. What was the drive to want to jump back in the driver's seat again and go hard and fast with Kinso?
There's like a few different things. So like number one, you've a very select few people in this world get to know what it feels like to be on the rat race and then achieve the goal of said rat race and then realize on the other end, oh wait, maybe it was actually the rat race is the fun part. It wasn't, like so many people will go their entire life of like going, like they'll just almost be there, but never quite get it. And they'll have in their mind, like the moment I get there, I'm going to be retired. I'm going to be good to go. And once you get to kind of experience the other side, you realize like, okay, life is definitely you need that purpose and you need that meaning, you need that thing to strive for. But for me, like the game of business is my vehicle. And so it's my vehicle for all of the different things that bring me joy in life. So whether it be like meeting amazing people, learning new skills, like getting to challenge myself, as well as the scorecard of business, which is the commercial realities of it, of making cash. Yeah. All right. But then like really specifically, I just love it. Like I literally love business so much. And I think, you know, the kind of the two potential sides for me was like, you know, do I go like the investing pathway and do like more of an advisory work and like hand out my advisory tokens and kind of chill out? And I did post exit maybe like 8 to 10 different advisory roles, some of them paid, some of them not paid. And I realized I love being in the arena. Yeah. Like I love like actually being in the arena. And like one of the challenges with like the advisory or investment is like, unless you're taking like really material stakes, you are just advice. Yeah. And that person can not listen to your advice. And you're like, oh, if only you did. And so getting, you know, there's like a certain sense of like control that you get to go like, I want this thing and now I get to do it. And if anything fails or wins or whatever it is, well, that was me, and I got to like do that, and I think that's just so intoxicating.
So we've understood the why, we've understood with the who, but what is Kinso?
Yeah, cool. So like in the most simple terms, the game of business these days has, for some reason, grown out to like 1 million different communication apps. So we've got our usual email, Slack, but now we also have LinkedIn, Instagram, and so on and so forth. And it just keeps growing. And so what is Kinso is we are going to unify all those messaging applications into one. By doing that, we get a deeper, richer context that we can deliver back to the user. And so what does that mean? As you know, every piece of communication, whether it be an email or a WhatsApp or an Instagram, is usually one piece of a puzzle, right? It's usually like you're having a conversation with a person about like a potential hire, but actually like you have this overarching theme, which is like we're hiring people right now. And so by bringing all of these pieces together, we can kind of close the loop. And so what that means, like fundamentally from a user's perspective, is they might receive an email and someone says, hey, like, where are we up to with that contract? But you've spoken about that contract in a WhatsApp to someone else. And so by having this context together, then we can like use Kinso, like serve those answers back without you needing to ask the question. And so we want Kinso to be the last messaging application you need for business.
For everything.
For everything.
I mean, we've got that problem at the moment that exists in the business as we've started to learn from you guys is firing up socials, building community online. And then you've got to be able to manage actual responses across LinkedIn, Instagram. You don't check something, you've realized you've got a message from a VC or you've got a message. We had one the other day. It's from a business in Saudi Arabia that wants us to come and talk at a conference of 100,000 people. But if I didn't sift through the 10 other things that are in there to see that, I would have missed it. And I probably would have missed it purely on the window not being responding inside of a few days as well.
And that's probably the last thing I should actually add is by having all of these messaging applications together, we can then infer the person's goals. So like what's most important to them. And then we actually prioritize the messages against their goals. And so that's a really important piece is you get that cold DM, like who is that? Well, who are they to you and who are they to your goals or your priorities? And then make sure it's like at the top of your list.
What's some of the advice and lessons that you've given to other people in other businesses post the acquisition that you've instilled in how you're going to run this business and do it differently from what you did with Realbase?
I'd say the biggest one is like post exit, like how we like if we played the Realbase playbook today, I don't know if it'll be successful because so much has changed in 13 years. And so like the two pieces that I, post exit were like, okay, how has the landscape changed? Number one was about distribution. Like with AI and with everything that's happening and the pace of everything, as things become infinitely easier to create tech companies, how do you stand out? And so the first one is distribution. So how do you actually get, people's ears and eyes to be like, oh, I want that. And so like when we first launched, I'd say we were more of a media company than we were a tech company. Like our daily focus was creating a bloody TikTok, which was, at the time felt like pulling teeth. But now I'm like, okay,
you can see the momentum now.
You can see the momentum. And so, as an example, I think last month we had an aggregated total of 15 million eyeballs, 42% of them in the US for 30 days across the team.
Wow.
which is cool. And only growing, which is what we like to see.
And on the 15, how much of it did you have to pay for?
Zero.
So it's all organic.
Zero, 100% organic.
I think one time you said this to me, you love marketing, like you love high quality marketing, you love high quality video content. Yeah. You started there. Yeah. And what did you realize what was happening?
Yeah. So like the biggest thing is like, I think aesthetically, I really like certain things. Like I really like the cinematic and all that kind of stuff. But then also what's most important is the outcome. So like, why am I doing it? Is to feel good about myself. Like, oh, look how beautiful I look aesthetically. You know, like so handsome. I could be a bloody actor. That actually doesn't matter. Like the outcome is what we want, and the outcome is the eyeballs and the attention. Yeah. And so the game of content is really interesting and painful because it has a really quick feedback loop, i.e. you post something and within 24 hours, that sucks or that's good. Yeah. And so our feedback loop as a team is like either daily or weekly or monthly from like a macro. And we're constantly looking like what's working, what's not working. And a lot of people, like if they start the game of content today, probably not Gen Zers, but like millennials, myself and above would go like, okay, who does content? Oh, let's go like look at the Gary Vaynerchuk playbook. And they're watching his content from like 10 years ago. Yeah. And that was really, really good. 10 years ago. Yeah. And now it's like kind of like, you know, you swallow your pride and you go, who's crushing right now? It's like, it's that random 19-year-old you know, in their bedroom and they've got a messy bedroom. Like, what are they doing? Yeah. Right. And so what are they doing is like, they are on their phone, like the quality of the content is on the phone. It's all about these dopamine receptors and it's like telling a story. And so to come back to your question is like, what did we learn? We learned is like, follow what works and follow other people that are working and figure out like what's our flavor of that. And we very quickly realized like a phone outperforms 10x to a high quality piece. So you got to find the right tool for the job. Where when it comes to YouTube as an example, like the phone will suck. And so you have to, you know, then you can get to your beautiful cinema stuff on YouTube. So
interesting. When you said that to me a while ago, it was like a bit of a penny drop moment because you're like, you assume because of the last 10 years that high quality, high production quality content is actually going to perform better because it looks nicer. Yeah. Actually, it doesn't in most cases. It's actually the quick, like rush little piece of content that delivers far more benefit to the business and engagement than anything else, which is like a bit of a mind twister, particularly in like a real estate space as well, where they want to do high quality production that doesn't just generally generate you an ROI off the back of it.
I think that's the biggest thing is because people have this perception, and I like to think about this from marketing, but then also like expand out for someone who's like, oh, I don't care about content. Is this idea of, but I want it to be perfect. Yeah. And like perfection needs to be grounded in the marketplace. And so, for example, you put out a video and it's like beautiful and blah, 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 and 300 people see it. Like, your view of perfection there was actually like, well, no one saw it, so no one cared. And so like, you know, like you fixate of the details, like, oh, at minute, you know, at second 53, the way I stumbled on my words wasn't correct. Don't worry, no one's going to watch it because it sucked, right? Compared to you deliver something and there's lots of viewership over it, right? And so like that's one of the biggest challenges that we wrestled with real estate agents is this idea of perfection. You know, like we were many times we had the DL, you know, at one stage of our business we did design and we'd have like a DL flyer that's going into a letterbox, and as we know, there's like 1% rate of people going to look at that thing, and we're on version 23 and they're like worrying about just every detail, and I'm like, well, we could have put out like 23 iterations by now. Yep. And I think that's the thing that traps a lot of people is this idea, this perceived idea of perfection, rather than realizing move faster and then use each move as a way to learn. Yeah. Right. That's the biggest one.
I think at the end of the day in business, you're there to win. That is the reality. Yeah. You can't get caught up in perfection of these things that actually don't move the needle at all. I think changing topic a little bit to chew the fat with the podcast you've done. How many episodes are you up to now?
Like not 95-ish, something like that. Yeah.
If you had to distill down like 3 traits across all guests that make them successful, what's like some of the things that really stand out to you amongst, you've interviewed some amazing people now. What would you say is like that handful of traits, 1, 2, 3 that they all have?
Yeah, cool. So I'd actually say the first trait I like to start with is they come in all different shapes and sizes. Some are louder, some are quieter, some are anxious, some are not. And the reason I say that because sometimes there's a bit of a relief in that because someone listening is like, I'm not that type of person, therefore I cannot be. Yeah. Is actually realizing, you know, I've spoken to a billionaire who's like pretty chill and a billionaire that's super eccentric. Like you come in all these different shapes and sizes. And I think that's really cool because it means like anybody who tells you like, here's the playbook and here are the things you need to do is usually trying to sell you a course of something, right? So we can ignore that. Number two is they all have an obsession. There's something you can like see in their eyes. There's like this like fierceness in their eyes and there's this obsessive nature. And it doesn't matter what the thing is they do. It might be a really glamorous product. It might be some piece of tech. It might be some really niche thing. Whatever it is, they're obsessed with their thing. And by having their obsession, there is a certain level of intoxication that comes along with it. Because as they describe their thing, you're like, wow, like you're like, that sounds incredible. Even if their thing is just something that's like super random. Like I like met a guy, wasn't on the podcast, but I met a guy and his thing was like the central door locking systems of most of the cars around the globe. Right. And you're like, that is so random, but like you are so laser focused on this one tiny little problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, you know, most of them, you talk about balance. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about because it's not about, I work 17 hours behind my desk, but it's like every living moment you're like thinking about it because you are just truly obsessed about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what the third one is? And I think this is more interesting when you think about it from the lens of like millionaires and billionaires. Is they're all good people.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of definitely on the social media front, there's a lot of this perception which is like, oh, these millionaires or billionaires must be evil because they're just gobbling up all the money. Well, actually, the reality is most of them started at nothing, and the only way to get to somewhere is you have to be an agreeable, likable person.
Yeah.
Because you have to convince people, you have to convince employees, you have to do all these things, and that makes you like quite a well-rounded human.
Yeah.
And so most of them, almost perfect strike rate, are like really great people that like you want to talk to and that are nice and are kind and are like all those things. And so I find that like really, really interesting because it's usually the ones that are not that are, I've definitely met more assholes that are not like, they've not like made it big time. And then the last one is they very much, share success. Like they get excited by other success, you know, like they don't put down the success of others because like they realize in order to get there, you have to realize there's an abundance in the world. It's not finite. Like you win, I lose. It's not like that.
Yeah. And I think we've got some mates like that as well. They're very successful people that will share everything. Even with their biggest competitor because they've got an abundance mindset. They're like, this market is big enough for us both to bake a buck in. 100%. And if I can learn something from you and you can learn something from me, it's a great outcome 100%. As well. So many people get caught up in trying to protect this little piece of IP they've got in their process instead of it opening up and actually trying to figure out how they can do it collectively to get there faster
100%.
As well. Franco, I've got two last questions for you before we have to wrap. Is one, we're really privileged to have you as an investor in FOUNDIT. I'd be curious to hear from you, you know, why did you want to invest into FOUNDIT? What was it about the vision and the mission of what we're going after and doing that attracted you to it?
Okay, cool. I say not because I'm like, oh, I can't think of one. I was thinking of too many.
Cool.
No. So here's like my starting, and this is just like the pure truth. I've seen yourself and Joel execute, and your ability to kind of go deeply care about the customer, right? Like, so if I think about the lens of like you and I came similar journeys, but then instead for me, I was like, I'm going to move out of real estate, start again, where you're like, I've been building these relationships for all this time. I know these people, I know the problems, and I can see what I can add value. And you're like, continue to go. And so that like the compound returns there of being able to like promise to customers and then you deliver on your promise and you go again. To me, that's like a no-brainer in terms of, I know you're gonna be able to go again. The second was like coming in from that is like, you like the team is in the kind of pole position to solve the problem because you have a really well-rounded view of what the problem and the solution looks like. Why is that? Because you understood the problem from the real estate agent's lens. You've then been in the world of domain, which is like seeing both tech and the consumer, and then to like bring it all home together. I'm like, okay, you have it kind of every stage of that journey to be able to best solve the problem. And then the last thing is just like, you know, when we first started early days talking about it, it was just like, seeing the trends, I guess, from like a macro perspective.
Yeah.
And seeing really what the customer needs, both the real estate agents and the consumers, which is, hey, everywhere else in the real estate and the residential side is, there's a lot of consolidation, but over here in the buyer space, it is super fragmented.
Yeah.
And it only logically makes sense that the fragmentation will end at some point in time and it'll become consolidated.
Yeah. And we want to be there to make sure that we capture it and
Exactly.
we realize that. We think about like this, and I've said this to you before, like we think that the buyer agent space is actually very similar to what happened with REA and Domain. Why is REA worth 34 and Domain is worth 3 or 4 is because REA got to the customers first, which got them the listings, which got them the eyeballs, which got them share a wallet.
Yeah.
Domain will never catch them to that same market share. That is probably a bit of the reality of it. But it doesn't mean they won't compete in other ways, but that is the reality of the market and being at first mover advantage, as we know. And we think that the buyer agent space is actually very similar in that degree. Like someone is going to get there first, be the fastest and be the biggest. We just want to make sure that it's us as well.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and the last question I've got for you is a lot of people who listen to it are business people, either wanting to get into business, wanting to continue to be better at business. For a founder who's about to start a business, day zero, whether a founder or a business owner, whatever it might be, what's some advice that you'd give to people lastly?
Okay, it's day zero. I think day zero will often come with like fears and concerns. And so where I would start for there is this rhetoric that 90% of businesses will fail, right? So 90% of small businesses fail in the first 5 years. There's this big rhetoric and these stats.
Yeah.
The challenge I have with that view of the world is if a founder has started 3 to 4 to 5 businesses and they all failed, and then on their 6th business they were successful, they're counted as 6 failures and 1 success. And so they're part of, one of their businesses was part of the 10% and the other 5 are part of the 90% of failures.
Yep.
And so I think that measurement is skewed because what we do is we track the businesses and not the individuals. And so the way I'd reframe it is how many founders who've stuck at the game of business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what percentage of them that were willing to hold on have been successful? And I'd be really interested if someone could ever figure that out. And so the reason I say that is because it's all about staying in the game. Like that's it to me. I think it's like the longer you're able to stay in the game, your probability for success greatly increases. And the second one from this idea of fear is, provided you don't leverage to the eyeballs and mortgage your house and do everything, like provided you don't do that, the worst case scenario is you'll be where you are today. So where you are today might be in a job or, at a corporate earning a salary. You can come back there.
Exactly.
And so this is the big one, is just like realizing the greatest risk is you are at your baseline and you're at, let's call it your worst point. And so if it doesn't work, you can come back to doing what you're doing today.
100%. And really good advice. I think often people get caught up about what if I fail? Well, I'd rather have a go and have a crack at actually trying to do it and then live with the regret of not having a go at that
100%.
opportunity. And then the reality is like, you can go and get another job if it doesn't work out as well. Franco, thanks for coming on the podcast and thank you for your investment and your backing in what we're doing.
Love it. Thank you.
Welcome to Day Zero.